to engage the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development. Today, members of the press, the director is present here today. We, as the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development, wish to provide an update to the nation in terms of the disbursement of the Constituency Development Fund. So this is part of the broader governance architecture of the new Dawn government in the interest of transparency, accountability, and public engagement. Today's press briefing fundamentally will detail the importance of the Constituency Development Fund, which will be prefaced by an indication of what the mandate of the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development is, after which we will delve into the actual disbursements that has gone out there and what we hope as government and disbursements will be able to finance within the context of the broader economic development ambitions of the government. As you might be aware, the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development aims to promote decentralized governance, facilitate rural development, and oversee the delivery of quality services through all the 116 local authorities across the country. The Ministry is also responsible for developing policies and implementing programs related to infrastructure development, social services, and promote economic growth, as well as enhance the well-being of citizens, including empowerment of local communities. Ladies and gentlemen, you will appreciate that one of the critical mandates, therefore, of the Ministry is implementation of the Constituency Development Fund, fondly referred to as CDF. The importance of CDF lies in its role of promoting decentralized development and community empowerment by funding local projects identified and implemented by communities themselves. The CDF provides financial resources for essential infrastructure like schools and clinics. CDF also supports economic growth through loans for entrepreneurs and enhances service delivery, and ultimately this combines to improve the overall quality of life and addresses specific local needs, including poverty alleviation of the communities that it serves. To put into context what CDF does, I think it's important to look at the different pillars or the different aspects of CDF itself. Number one, CDF promotes decentralized development. It empowers local communities to take a leading role in identifying, planning, and implementing development projects that have specific needs for a very particular context. So through the vehicle of decentralized development, we see that CDF indeed ensures that it relies on local capacities, local knowledge to implement projects that are fit for purpose for a particular context. CDF promotes infrastructural improvements by providing funds for the construction and rehabilitation of critical, vital infrastructure, including schools, health centers, roads, crossing points, water supply systems. All these will bring essential services to the people in need. CDF also is a vehicle for economic empowerment by offering loans and grants to small-scale entrepreneurs and supports community projects, which helps to boost local economies, to create jobs, and reduce dependence on external aid. CDF also enhances service delivery by financing projects that improve local infrastructure and provide social services. CDF contributes to better healthcare, education, and sanitation, leading to improved living standards of the community. CDF promotes community participation and accountability It encourages communities to get involved in their own affairs. It encourages decision making, promotes accountability, promotes transparency, and is ultimately people-centered. CDF is also a vehicle that is relied upon in order to address the rural-urban gap. By channeling resources to communities, in rural areas especially, CDF helps to bridge the gap between rural and urban development, which essentially fosters equitable progress across the nation. Let me take this opportunity to now announce to the nation that the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development has disbursed a total of 602 million within the last 7 days alone. This translates into an average of about 4 million kwacha per constituency. So based on the equality principle, all constituencies have been funded equally. Now, in order to encourage effective and efficient utilization of CDF funds, as a ministry, we are relying on a criteria that is aimed at encouraging the local authorities to make use of these funds. So in the event that local authorities have funds sitting in their bank accounts, we will skip them on a particular disbursement cycle and fund those that have utilized funds. But as you look at the disbursement cycles cumulatively, you realize that the funding is actually the same across all the local authorities. There is no bias, there is no political bias in terms of CDF disbursement, even though some people will come and indicate that only the UPND aligned constituencies are receiving funding. All local authorities, all constituents, irrespective of the political party affiliation, are receiving the same amount of money, because ultimately funds are aimed at improving the lives of Zambians across the country. Essentially, this latest funding implies that the total amount disbursed to all the constituencies from January 2025 to date is over 3 billion kwacha. So over 3 billion kwacha has been released to the local authorities across the country since January in order to finance all the different projects that will meet the different needs that have been highlighted, including infrastructure development, including improvement in service delivery, including equality in provision of development across the country. As a ministry, we are elated that a number of development projects will be implemented across the country, and we urge the local authorities to be judicious, to be efficient and effective in the utilization of these funds. I thank you, and God bless you all.
Thank you so much, Piers, for that elaborate brief of CDF. At this particular moment in time, we will call upon colleagues from the media to ask questions, if any, concerning the subject matter. Yes, you can introduce yourself again.
I just wanted to find out, in line with the displacement of CDF, is the ministry doing anything to ensure that we desist from having constituencies having a backlog of funds sitting idle? Because I am aware that some constituencies for the 2025 disbursement have received close to quarter, not even half of the disbursement that was allocated to them in 2025. So is that something the ministry is doing to ensure that we don't have constituencies having backdated funds in accounts? Would you rather answer?
Yeah, so giving me as and when they come before I lose my train of thought. So essentially what we've done is that we have a funding criteria that we're implementing at the ministry. And fundamentally, we are also putting mechanisms in place that will discipline principal officers in local authorities that are not using these funds. So we've issued a circular as the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development to all the 116 local authorities, encouraging them to use funds within 48 hours of receiving those funds. If they've received those funds, they must spend that money within 48 hours, owing to the accumulated obligations that they possess. In the next cycle, if they have funds sitting still in their accounts, we're making recommendations for disciplinary action to the Local Government Service Commission. So we're working closely as one government in order to ensure that local authorities make use of these funds. Well, actually, what you observe is that since we started implementing these mechanisms, there's been an improved uptake, an improved utilization of CDF funds. So the data is available that shows that the systems and mechanisms we put in place are producing the kind of results that we envisage and we hope to have. So mechanisms are in place. We're coming from a time when it's been learning by doing, in the sense that unprecedented in our country, local authorities now have to manage huge chunks of resources.
Yes, please. Matthews, mine is just a rider, but in form of percentages. How much are we talking about when it comes to utilization? If you are to do percentages.
When it comes to
percentages.
Utilization.
Yes.
Okay. So the total budget for 2025 for CDF cumulatively is 5.6 billion. The total funding received so far is 3.8 billion, and about 3.1 billion has been disbursed. So when you look at the percentages, you can see that the performance is around 68% based on what was totally budgeted and what has been funded in relation to the disbursements that have gone out. So we have actually seen, based on the data, we've actually seen an improvement in utilization of CDF funds. And we see that Ministry of Finance, despite a very tight fiscal space, is also working very well with ourselves in communicating when funds will be available and ensuring that those funds are moving from accounts and going towards service provision.
Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, PS.
Good afternoon. Is it afternoon now? Still morning.
It's still morning. I like afternoon. Okay, seeing that from the look of things, that CDF seems to be the engine of the development in our country, in most places. Having heard the number of the total amount that has been disbursed so far in these constituencies, is the ministry doing its best to follow up in some places where these funds are going, make sure that it is utilized to its intended purpose? And also, how is the feedback, the community? Because the community, they're the one who owns these funds when they go out there. How is the response to it?
Okay, so I think that's a very important question. So the effective implementation of CDF really relies on a whole of society approach. Just yesterday, our Honourable Minister was hosting provincial local government officers. Now, these are the representatives of the ministry at the provincial level, and they're being empowered with capacities to supervise the ongoing works that are taking place at local authorities. We also have supervision visits that take place where we have, for example, the Department of Rural Development, or have finance that will undertake, or have internal audits that will undertake occasional visits at the local authorities in order to streamline and enhance service delivery. So there are a number of multiple interventions that are currently being implemented in order to ensure that CDF resources are being utilized efficiently and effectively. But also, part of this has to do with community engagement and consultation. You will see that when our officers are on the ground, they will do monitoring visits in collaboration with the communities that are benefiting from particular CDF projects. So we see very, very positive feedback from the communities themselves. They are very much interested in looking at what projects are being implemented. First of all, they are selecting these projects themselves. And secondly, they want to see that these projects are successfully implemented. But they also want to be involved in the supervision of these projects. And we see that there are systems currently coming into light that will ensure that communities are carried along throughout the processes.
We can have our last question.
Sure.
Second last question, that is from Peter Bob.
Good morning, yes, once again. As a ministry, have we done an inquiry, maybe in these constituencies, to know why these funds are sitting idle in some constituencies as it has been? Have we done any inquiry, and would we know why this is being done in some certain constituencies?
Yes, so part of the monitoring visits is to establish the underlying reasons for a lack of fund utilization. So it's not just one reason, there are multiple reasons that explain why funds would be sitting in bank accounts. And some of them have to do with the lag between procurement process and the actual delivery of an item. So I'll give you an example of some local authorities in Northern Province that have procured what so-called yellow machines, earth-moving equipment. So they receive funds and you begin procurement process. And we know from the Procurement Act that you cannot begin procurement process until you confirm that funds are there. So one, they're waiting for funds to hit their accounts. When funds have hit their accounts, they begin the procurement processes. So the money will sit in the bank account until the yellow machine has been delivered. So there are different reasons, but this one has been shown to be one of the critical reasons that we've seen out there. So what we're doing is that in conversation with local authorities themselves, we're encouraging them to make use of those funds, knowing very well that whether they like it or not, Ministry of Finance is going to release funds. So if they have other obligations apart from the major procurements like earth-moving equipment or waiting for an IPC to be concluded, we're asking them to make use of those funds because more money will be coming. So we found that it was common practice where local authorities are insulating funds in order to pay for the yellow machines when they've been delivered, or they're insulating funds in order to pay for an IPC when it has been concluded and prepared by the engineers. Now we're saying, well, whilst you're waiting for these big projects to be properly concluded, you may go ahead and make use of these funds for things like bursaries, for things like loans, because once we funded you, we're not saying this is for yellow machines or this is for an IPC for a school that you're constructing, it's for CDF projects, so make use of those funds. And we've seen an improvement, actually, since we started instituting that. Thank you.
One last question.
Yes. Good morning.
Good morning to you.
Joseph Americanda from Prime TV. Just want to get clarity here. If there is a lag behind in terms of utilization of CDF funds on the backdrop of promoting EGP, would you kindly clarify to us if at all local authorities are trained and capacitated to use EGP? Secondly, do the local authorities consolidate the infrastructure development as a result of CDF, and as well as the economic activities that have so far been taking place as a result of one, loans out of CDF as well as grants from CDF? So how are these boosting the local economies in these setups?
Another important question, basically, which I think brings into question the overall implementation mechanism that's in place at the local authorities. So firstly, we recognize that local authorities are capable of running procurement processes in a very procedural manner that really is essential for ensuring that we abide by the tenets of the laws and regulations that govern public procurement. So they are trained, but we also recognize that training is an ongoing process. Capacity building is an ongoing process within the context of the government machinery more broadly. And we see very clearly that that training is producing the kinds of results that we want, because you can actually do a trend analysis to look at whether or not there's been an improvement, and for sure you can quantify the improvement based on utilization rate. You can ascertain whether or not the mechanisms we put in place are effective by determining the before and after situation based on the implementation of a particular program or intervention in order to help local authorities use those funds. So we do see actually an improvement within that context. And the only conclusion we draw from there is that the interventions that we put in place, the training that they're undergoing, are producing dividends at the local authority level, because we see improvements in the utilization, in performance. But another point that you raised is really, I think, addressing impact. It's really addressing impact. They're saying CDF is just a vehicle for delivery of development to the local level, right? So if we look at the numbers of individuals that are benefiting from CDF as entrepreneurs, or the numbers of individuals benefiting from CDF as bursars, those who've gone into school, who otherwise wouldn't, how many schools have been built, what desks have been put there in order to improve the quality of education in those areas. You can appreciate that the magnitude of the impact of CDF in this community is quite substantial. So there are studies that are currently ongoing right now, and I think it's something that we as a ministry are also looking into. How do we quantify the economic benefit of CDF at the local authority? So you'd appreciate that you need a multivariable sort of index that can quantify the economic impact of CDF, because the impact is in material terms, it's also in intangible terms, in terms of the skills, in terms of quality of education that the people would benefit from provision of CDF, including the quality of healthcare that will result from it.
Thank you so much, please. I think we have come to the end of our press briefing. Once again, thank you so much for